I'm Ryan O'Dowd, and you're listening to Ryan's Audiobooks on the Issues Magazine YouTube channel. Today I continue with section 420 of The Omega Seed by Paolo Soleri. We're moving on in Book 6, Technological Frankenstein and the Delphic Oracle. Nominal freedom, contextual coercion. Synopsis. De facto coercion is routinely accepted as part of the social contract to which we belong. Within such de facto coercion, we cut our niche of freedom, seldom questioning the legitimacy or equity of the law of the land, real estate regulations, restrictions, etc. The price tag of freedom is expressed by the license, sanctioned or not, one gets away with. It's a poor brand of freedom, subservient to the rules of the quote-unquote free market. To those nations still immune to the automobile curse. With all the honesty and candor Western man can muster, he can't escape his contradictory position of exploiter and benefactor, medicine, agriculture, communication, qualified technology. He must avoid indulgence in the black magic of can-do, must-do. Feasibility seldom coincides with desirability. As exploiter, the only road to atonement, if not redemption, is to pay personally for the wrongdoing before self-righteousness makes him expect the rest of the world to follow suit. That such voluntary contrition might handicap him vis-a-vis the developing countries is a necessary element in their catching-up process. It's a moral imperative. It's right and rational that Zambian smokestacks be dirtier than Pittsburgh's, if this has to be part of the price for the development of Zambia. But in the environmental context, giving the worldwide question of equity all the merit and effort due it, the solutions we offer to the problems we face as a species still fundamentally beg the questions. One of the clearest instances of a non-answered question having consequences of the most pervasive and negative nature is the automobile pollution destruction equation. That the automobile as now used is the single most destructive invention for the undoing of urban life and ultimately our whole civilization is at best only hinted at. That in the automobile, the force of pollution as an entropic undoer of life is most highly concentrated and most powerful, is also not seriously considered. In hypocritical rage, the battle is waged on the amount of pollutants emitted by the exhaust pipe, as if to kill the dragon, the true pollution, a mask on his snout would do the job. This is as honest as trying to cure a moribund organism infected with bug-sized viruses, a herd of 200 million in rolling stock, and all the paraphernalia belonging to them, by filtering the breath of their broken-down lungs. Will we ever regain our senses and see what is so painfully and pervasively ordering us around for what it is? The cancer of entropy welcomed by us, life within the folds of life itself? It is in this case the sum of all the protean modes of the car itself and the colossal road network, essentially inside the cities. It chills the blood to watch Russia plunging recklessly into the car era. The oil refineries, the energy depletion, the oil tankers and pipelines, trains and trucks, the oil wars, the Detroits, the car strips, the parking lots and garages, the gas stations, the insurance companies, the moneylenders, the medical bills, the broken lives, the mystic shows, the segregated topographies, the junkyards, the toil for naught, and most critical and crippling of all, the physical structure of the cities themselves. All of it for what? Listen to this. All of it is for the specific and official purpose of bringing people and things to the threshold of their performance. That is to say, to the point at which they can begin to do and to be what they want to be and to do. Can anyone sane and free subscribe to such madness? The answer is no. Or the answer is we are neither sane nor free. As a footnote, it has to be said that the automobile can be defeated only in those places where it physically cannot get in. The environment that has no place for highways, roads, and streets, the roadless three-dimensional city. It's pure fantasy to believe otherwise. I do not speak metaphysics. I speak the pragmatism of the spirit, that is to say, I speak mass energy in the process of making itself into spirit. That happens to be the extant reality, the only one available to man, the only truly human one. I speak bootstrap physics, physics that by its bootstraps pulls itself beyond itself, the mineral ecology of this earth at the beginning of its evolution, transforming itself into the newest sphere today, the current human ecology. If the politician and the economist, the technologist and the behaviorist, the doctor and the scholar speak of something else, that is our mutual hard luck. Man and the living world are the bridge between matter and spirit. Man is in fact matter becoming spirit. The whole of this world is now engaged in this most momentous genesis. Mineral, vegetal, animal, and human kingdoms in a converging and well-documented effort 4 billion years young. One should not trust a planner or a leader who does not subscribe to such irrefutable fact. To subscribe to it is to think and act to reinforce the spiritualization process in every instance. Bangladesh, dereliction, Playboy party, tax policies, bugging, satellite spying, gross national pollution, forest lawn, genocide, Planned Parenthood, vegetarianism, lib, etc. Notwithstanding all conceivable differences between problems in size, impact, pervasiveness, structure, background, or reference, they are fundamentally the same. The processing of physical mass energy into the transcendental, spirit. This applies to the virus, the algae, the spider, the eagle, the man. Short of such understanding, we are cut off from reality, and although we may be strenuously dedicated, chin-deep in practical matters, we are brutally cheating ourselves. The linkage by which the physical becomes the transphysical is the history of the world itself. The need to identify this linkage intellectually has been part and parcel of man's struggle with himself and with the world. The impetus for the search goes beyond the thirst for knowledge and beyond the opportunism of instrumentalization. The central reason, conscious or not, has been the attempt to subdue the existential anguish of the species. We do not as yet, as common man, recognize the depth of such anguish. Our fragmentary efforts denounce the callousness we apply in comprehending ourselves. The paradox of the spirit is that to fully realize itself, the whole of the physical cosmos has to be processed and sublimated. Short of such metamorphosis, the spirit is but a fragment of its potential self. Therefore, the presence of anguish, and on the faking side, the cultivation of skepticism or cynicism as a manageable shield against it. Short of solid congruence with the truth that man is the actual development, witnessed by every one of us, of matter becoming spirit, and how sanguine such becoming is, the future is dim, highly hypothetical, and the anguish unaboutable. All the pragmatism that practical man can muster cannot even come close to the pragmatism implicit in the consciousness of this etherealization process and its driving force. It is, one must repeat, the pragmatism of the life of the earth, the whole 4 billion years of it. If the earth experience does not present us with a readable methodology, skeletal as it may be, then nothing else really can, certainly not the inventive power of our young minds. In fact, the absence of methodology would mean that nothing really matters, neither pain nor joy, and the living world would be simply causelessness, blind and furiously deterministic. That such methodology does exist, and that its mandatory demands might put our souls out of balance, is only testimony to the debilitating confusion of our present history. To soften the preemptive tone of such methodology is to misread nature and its rigor and take refuge once more in unreal guidance systems, free enterprise being one. It's true that once the methodology is accepted, we can accept and possibly succeed in coordinating the details, social, cultural, economic, political, administrative, productive, etc., because then their converging nature would be ascertained and an appropriate course of action could be determined. But if fear and conceptual segregation push logic into a corner, acquiescence will cut off our capacity to move. Such a position is not only reprehensible, it is also destructive, as it breaks down the connection between the individual and the matrix of his being through incongruence within himself and incongruence with the world from which he originates. Diffidence or indifference toward an idea that affirms the convergence of needs and aims, of consciousness and congruence, of ideal and real, of physical and metaphysical, can be rationalized and eventually dispelled only if impatience and self-pity, conceit and arrogance do not sever the threads of continuity in the process of logic of one's own making in deference to the iron logic of evolving reality. The methodology I am speaking of is expressed in these statements. 1. Consequent to the fortuitous or divine triggering of life, the universe's mass energy is in the process of etherealizing itself into spirit. 2. Intrinsic to this metamorphosis of mass energy into spirit is the ever-increasing complexity of the systems carrying on the transformation, primary among them, man. The sine qua non spatial mechanism of putting more into less, allowing for the incremental growth of complexity, is the miniaturization process. 4. On this earth, the most comprehensive structure embodying the becoming of etherealization is the city, the invention and creation of Homo sapiens. 5. Thus the city, the etherealization machine, is rigorously governed by the physio-energetic rules of complexity miniaturization. 6. Among the many options offered to contemporary man, the complex miniaturized city is the least optional in as much as it is mandatory for the spirit of the earth. 7. The city is a social, cultural, economic, moral, and political imperative, and, under the current demographic pressure, it is also a survival necessity. 8. This gives the lie to most of our priorities and demythologizes practical man, as his paradigms are bankrupt, if it is true that real man is the man of the spirit. Generally, the following paradigm can be stated. A. In any given situation, the liveliest duration quantum is also the most complex. B. In any given system, the most complex quantum is also the most miniaturized. For a mechanistic universe, the complexity miniaturization duration paradigm would stand for the what, the why, and the how. For a non-mechanistic universe, the complexity miniaturization duration paradigm stands as a necessary but not sufficient condition. That is to say, it stands for a mandatory how. For both of them, the paradigm is a must towards a higher order of things. This higher order of things includes the eradication of poverty, coercion, disease, intolerance, bigotry, hatred, segregation, etc. To connect the condition of man to the implications of this paradigm, I make the following comparisons. By these I am also denouncing the make-believe of our daily life, its pretense of self-determination, at the same time pointing out how much this pretension costs each one of us regardless of color, location, nation, political environment, etc. 1a. If a tyrant forbids me to visit a friend, I say that he deprives me of my rights. B. If 20 miles of traffic congestion and frustration, the cost of which I bear, separates us and deprives me of my friend, I say that's life, but I'm still a free man. 2a. If Big Brother says my children are not good enough for good schooling, I say that I am the slave of a monster. B. If the city is such that a good school is too distant and too costly for my children to attend, I say that life's in a free society. 3a. If a dictator orders me to buy my car to fill the coffers of Corporation X, I say my freedom is impaired. B. If I find out that my survival is conditioned by the purchase of an automobile, I say that's a part of life, even though I am a free man. 4a. If a bad genie orders me around in circles every morning and evening for perhaps 15 miles before getting to my work or home, I say I am a prisoner of a cruel god. B. If that is what I do morning and evening 300 days per year to get to work and back, I say that is the life of a free man after all. 5a. If a mobster compels me to buy his expensive garbage collection service, I say he blackmails me through my health. B. If the tax collector gets from me the same extortionary price for garbage removal, I say that is life, though I am a free man. 6a. If the oligarchy refuses me health care, I die in sorrow and pain, an indictment of the cruelty of man toward man. B. If it is simply in the nature of things that I cannot afford hospitalization and care, I say I lived and died free. 7a. If a bureaucrat forbids me to attend events and performances and cuts me off from the cultural social cornucopia, I say it must be a nightmare. B. If, though the cornucopia is said to be there, I cannot find ways and means of getting at it, I say that's my luck, a free man, hard luck. 8a. If the government tells me magazines and journals will be turned off, I say my right of free speech is trod upon. B. If the mailing cost out of demented priorities and logistics kills the press, I say there are things even a free man can do without. 9a. If a wicked witch orders me to crank out tons of soot each year by burning barrels of black tar, I say life is insane. 9b. If that is what I produce in pollution, while going about the business of survival, I say that's a part of the existential picture. 10a. If the maniac up there makes me roll carpets of cement and asphalt over houses and gardens, towns and fields, I say madness is controlling my life. B. If that is what I do because consciously and willfully I place the things I cherish and need farther and farther away, farther and farther apart, and I must get to them somehow, I say that is the assertion of my rugged individualism. 11a. If in general the totalitarian who orders me around isolates me from things, institutions, and persons I desire and need, and if in addition the few things I can do have a price tag which makes my action unacceptable to the earth, such as the burning of fossil fuels at exponential rates for demented reasons, I say I'm a prisoner of an evil order. B. If in general I find that an identical isolation and deprivation is inherent and contextual to the environment I am in, I say that that is my existential situation. One might forgive such twisted reasoning as there is a trace of truth in the fact that willful evil is worse than faceless, unplanned cruelty. Yet the only evil that can and must be accepted is the evil of fate, that which weighs on each of us and cannot be warped by the destiny we battle for. When fate is of our own making, it's not fate anymore, it's coercion, punishment, deprivation, and the curtailment of self-determination. It becomes too absurd for words and deeds when the proposition that these and all similar conditions can be rectified by the reordering of our physical environment. It's almost automatically branded as anti-democratic. The environment is a structure of finite character with finite demands as to its performance. Therefore, with the logic of a chicken, the rugged individualist, rather than putting an ear to the beat of an alternative unknown, as frightening as the sky caving in, prefers to remain ostentatiously free, knowing inside how deceptive his pretension is, and how costly to himself and society is his purely nominal freedom. This conscious or unconscious hypocrisy cannot be sustained forever. In fact, things have been giving way badly enough and for a sufficient time now to make such posture a crime against humanity. The exodus into suburbia, thus withdrawal of society from itself, is a gigantic step backwards into isolation and segregation, unless it's followed by a forceful reversal and the return of society to truly lovable cityscapes. Busing, the anguish it causes, and the marketing of the issue for political profiteering are but a byproduct of the drama pitting nominal freedom against pragmatic coercion, with neither side giving a second thought to the fact that given the urban-suburban structure of today, the war is lost before the battles are fought, lost by both sides. The whole ship, blacks, whites, yellows, greens, grays, is sailing away from home, into no man's land, into the pollution of entropy, away from the spirit. To object to the proceeding with the contention that the conditions considered here are confined to the North American continent and Europe is to fail to understand that those are the models the whole of mankind wants or will want to emulate. The folly of such a dream must haunt our waking hours and make us do a 180-degree turn from explosion to implosion, from entropy pollution to asentropy life. Taking the city as the environment toward which the bulk of the Earth's population gravitates, and calling Arcology the environmental ecological architecture which intentionally applies the complexity miniaturization paradigm, methodology of evolution, one can state the following arcological commitment. The arcological commitment is not indispensable for 1. The alleviation of the ecological crisis, although it is that. 2. The redimensioning of our use of land, air, water, although it is that. 3. The reduction of the pollution caused by technological societies, although it is that. 4. The perception of the nature of waste, affluence, opulence, although it is that. 5. A reasonable sheltering of man as his number moves towards 8 billion or more, although it is that. 6. Resolving the problem of energy depletion, distribution, consumption, although it is that. 7. Resolving the problem of segregation of people, things, activities, although it is that. 8. Responding to the increasing encroachment of remoteness by way of gigantic services and their bureaucracies, although it is that. 9. A renewed trust in the future of life in general, and man in particular, although it is that. Most generally, the arcological commitment is not indispensable because it's the best instrument for survival, although it is that. All these are remedial reasons, important for man but only instrumental to the specific humaneness sought by him. They are manutentive and restorative. They are not specifically creative. By their implementation, the refund of health to man and earth will never be a substitute for grace, but only a threshold to id. The arcological commitment is indispensable because it advocates a physical system that consents to the high compression of things, energies, logistics, information, and performance. It fosters the thinking, doing, living, learning, playing in human urban settings that are essential, critical, vibrant phenomenon of life at its most lively and compassionate. The state of grace, aesthetogenesis, possible for a socially and individually healthy man on an ecologically healthy earth. That concludes Nominal Freedom, Contextual Coercion in Book 6, Technological Frankenstein and the Delphic Oracle, of Section 420, The Omega Seed by Paolo Soleri. Tomorrow we will finish the book in Section 421, Pre-Future and Its Perils. I will see you then. Alam.